My son's wife took my credit card with 700,000 after waiting until I fell asleep, and I never thought the woman my son chose to marry would become the reason. I nearly lost everything. I had worked for my entire life. At 74 years old, I've been through wars, recessions, the loss of friends, and even my beloved wife. But nothing cut me as deeply as the betrayal I experienced under my own roof. My name is Richard Hayes. People in my small town in Michigan know me as Grandpa Rich. I retired 10 years ago after running a successful construction business. Over 4 decades, I built not just homes but trust. Every penny I earned came from sweat, blisters, and the belief that if I worked hard, I could give my family a future where they'd never have to struggle. That's why I never hesitated when my son, Daniel, came to me 5 years ago, telling me he was marrying a young woman named Vanessa. She was beautiful, charming, and had a way of lighting up a room. But beneath that smile, I would later discover, lay something dangerous. A too-good-to-be-true daughter-in-law. When Vanessa first entered our family, she treated me like gold. She'd say, "Dad, let me cook for you." Or, "Dad, don't you worry, I'll take care of you." At first, I thought I was blessed. After losing my wife, Margaret, years earlier, the loneliness in my house was crushing, so I welcomed the company. But I noticed something odd. She always seemed curious about my money. Whenever we talked, she'd ask questions like, "Dad, how much did you make from selling your company? Dad, do you have stocks or just savings?" I brushed it off. Maybe she was just curious, or maybe she wanted financial advice. I never imagined she had darker motives. The night of the betrayal. It was a chilly November evening. I had invited Daniel and Vanessa over for dinner. We shared roast beef, mashed potatoes, and apple pie, the kind Margaret used to make. After dinner, Daniel had to leave for an early business trip, but Vanessa insisted she'd stay the night to keep me company. I thought, what a sweet daughter-in-law. She cares about the old man. I didn't know that night would become the most painful memory of my life. I had a small drawer in my study, locked but easy to access, where I kept my most important items, my late wife's jewelry, my military medals, and my platinum credit card, the one tied to an account holding $700,000. It was my emergency fund, my safety net, and the legacy I intended to pass on to Daniel and my grandchildren someday. That night, I fell asleep in my recliner while watching an old Western. I remember Vanessa putting a blanket over me, whispering, "Good night, Dad." When I woke up the next morning, something felt off. The blanket was gone, the house was too quiet, and Vanessa was nowhere to be found. I went to my study. The drawer was slightly open. My heart sank. The card was gone. The aftermath. I called my bank immediately. The representative on the other end told me words that nearly made me collapse. "Mr. Hayes, in the last 8 hours, there have been multiple charges on your account totaling $680,000. Vanessa had waited until I fell asleep, stolen my card, and gone on a shopping spree across online luxury stores, jewelry outlets, and even wired cash overseas." I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't just money. This was my life's work. I called Daniel. My hands were shaking. "Son, your wife stole from me," I said, barely able to get the words out. There was a long silence on the phone. Then Daniel whispered, "Dad, she's not here. She left a note. She said she doesn't love me anymore." It hit me like a sledgehammer. She had not only robbed me, but abandoned my son too. Picking up the pieces. The police got involved. Fraud investigators traced her to another state. But by the time they caught up, most of the money was gone. She had moved it into offshore accounts. The chances of recovering it were slim. I was broken. Not just financially, but emotionally. I kept asking myself, how could I be so blind? How could I let a snake into my family? But something inside me refused to give up. I wasn't just an old man to be pitied. I was Richard Hayes, the man who built homes with his bare hands. The turning point. Instead of wallowing in despair, I took action. I hired a private investigator, spent sleepless nights gathering evidence, and refused to back down. Weeks later, my persistence paid off. We discovered she had purchased properties under a false identity. With enough pressure, the authorities froze her assets. I may not have gotten all my money back, but I reclaimed over $400,000. More importantly, I sent a message. No one robs this grandpa and walks away free. A lesson for my son. Through it all, Daniel was devastated. He kept blaming himself. Dad, I should have seen it. I brought her into our lives. I put my hand on his shoulder and said, Son, betrayal isn't your fault. Evil hides behind beauty, behind charm. What matters is how we rise after being knocked down. I could see the fire return to his eyes. He realized we couldn't change what happened, but we could rebuild together. The new chapter. Today I live more cautiously. I don't leave my valuables within reach. And I've locked down every account with layers of protection. But I'm not bitter. Why? Because in the ashes of betrayal, something beautiful rose. My son and I grew closer than ever. He now calls me every night just to say, Dad, I love you. And that to me is worth more than $700,000. As for Vanessa, last I heard, she's facing charges and will likely spend years behind bars. She traded love and family for greed and lost it all. Grandpa's final words. If you're listening to my story, let me leave you with this. Money can be stolen, but character cannot. People will betray you, sometimes even those closest to you. But don't let it harden your heart. I am still Grandpa Rich. I still smile at strangers, help neighbors fix their roofs, and tell stories to my grandchildren. Because life is too short to let betrayal define you. Vanessa thought she destroyed me, but in truth, she reminded me of my own strength. And that strength? That's the real inheritance I will leave behind.